Welcome to Grow Fast, Grow Smart, the PI Playbook by Accelerator, the podcast exclusively designed to help personal injury law firms reach their full potential and serve their clients better. Let's jump in.
Hello, and welcome to the PI Playbook, where we focus on top marketing and operations strategies for personal injury law firms. Brought to you by CJ Advertising and Accelerator Law Firm Consultants, this podcast is designed to help PI law firms grow fast and grow smart in all areas of their practice. Today, we're talking about Google's local services ads. Hi, my name is Stephanie Koehler, Associate Director of Digital Content with CJ Advertising. And today my guest is Jamie Hallen, a Senior Media Buyer at CJ. Welcome, Jamie.
Hi, thank you.
Before we get started on local services ads or LSAs, please tell our listeners about your background and your role at CJ.
Of course. Well, thank you, Stephanie. Thanks for having me. Happy to be on the podcast and discuss our topic for today. So I have worked in digital marketing for the last 9 years or so, and I've been with CJ Advertising for just under 1 year. It'll be a year early October. So as you mentioned, I'm one of the senior media buyers here at CJ, and I'm responsible for all of our paid campaigns for all of our clients, digital paid campaigns. That includes not only local services ads, but also pay-per-click advertising, or PPC, as is more commonly known as.
Awesome. Well, I know CJ team is so glad to have you on board and all the expertise you bring to digital ad buys. So let's start off with our topic. Can you give us a quick overview of what Google's local services ads are for anyone who might not be familiar?
Of course, yeah. So Google's local services ads, they were released by Google around 2015 or so in certain select test markets across the country. And in around 2018 or 2019, they began to roll it out nationwide and also expanding various industries. It's not just offered for legal law. It was initially launched for what you think of when you think of home services. So HVAC, electricians, plumbers. And over the years, and even to this day, Google is steadily expanding the different industries that it offers. So the legal industry was released around that 2018, 2019 mark. And what they essentially are is that they're digital ads that show at the top of Google's Google's search engine results page at the very top. And that's important to point that out, not just on the page, but at the very top. They are always at the very top. They are based on a pay-per-lead cost system, which means that as the advertiser, you're only paying when a potential client sees your ad, not clicks on it, but actually either calls or messages you directly from that ad, which is very important. There's a couple different options for the potential client to contact you. Primarily is via phone call, but also there is an option as the advertiser to include for somebody to message you directly. Most of our clients, we see probably about 80 to 90% or so of the leads that we receive are via phone call.
Cool. I mean, that's great to have an ad that equals a phone call. I know lots of law firms would be very excited to receive one of those calls. Now, you mentioned that local services ads appear at the very top of Google's search results. Why is this prime placement so valuable for law firms?
Well, aside from the obvious reason, I mean, it's just the fact that it's at the very top. In our industry and with CJ, just in the digital marketing industry, there's so many different channels that you want to optimize. For example, the SEO component, the organic searches. Now there's Google Maps, the Google Business Profile, pay-per-click, as I mentioned earlier. So the goal with all of that is you want to show up the highest, simply put. And with local services ads, when shown, you are shown at the top. When somebody is doing a search on Google, more often than not, they tend to have their eyes drawn to the top. I mean, it's not 100% of the time, but most of the time their eyes are drawn to the top. Sometimes they'll scroll down and look at all of the other different results that show up. But by showing up at the top is hugely important for a couple of reasons too, especially for those users that have a much higher intent to contact you as a law firm. So say, for example, someone was just in a car accident and they were injured and they're looking for legal representation. the fact that, right, they're not looking to scroll. I mean, but they want to contact, they want to talk to somebody right then and there. It's a matter of just necessity. So by doing that, by showing up at the top of Google, you're giving them that option to contact you directly. Not just contact you, but contact you via phone call. They want to get somebody on the phone to speak with.
Yeah, that's a powerful connection to a law firm's intake team. So really getting folks the help they need when they need it. All right, you mentioned kind of PPC ads and local services ads. Let's talk about that cost structure. So how does the pay per lead model of local services ads differ from PPC or pay per click advertising?
Of course. Well, starting with pay per click, as the name implies, as the advertiser, you're paying per click. So there's different ways that the pay per click ads can appear. But really the main way is what they call a search ad. They show up on the Google search engine result page, and in the form of, there's a website, a landing page that you provide to Google, and just various other information, obviously ad copy, and all of that. But if the person clicks on the ad, regardless of what happens after that fact, if they convert or not, whether on your website, if they fill out a form or don't fill out a form, or call you or don't call you, you are still forced to pay as an advertiser. Conversely, with local services ads, you are only paying when somebody sees your ad, clicks on it, but then actually takes that action to call you or message you, like we discussed before.
Exciting. Okay, so I mean, feels like a no-brainer, but for law firms considering local services ad, what would you say are the top 3 benefits compared to those other forms of online advertising generally?
Well, we talked a bit about it too, but just to have that top prime real estate at the top of Google. I mean, like I said, whether it be SEO or pay per click or LSAs, that's really the main goal, is just to show up when someone's looking for they perform a search on Google. They know what they want, or at least they know sort of the ballpark of what they want of a personal injury lawyer. So to be able to capture that attention at the very top, that's an obvious benefit as it is. The pay per lead model, in that you're sort of skipping a few of the steps when it comes to that sales funnel, and that somebody who's doing just general research, for example, and they know that they potentially need an attorney, but they're not ready to contact you at that exact moment. So they may avoid the LSAs, and they may scroll down, they may click on an organic search or a website ad, and then they browse around on the site. They want to learn about your firm. Nothing wrong with that at all. There's just different types of people when they're searching. But one of the differences with that, though, is that they may not be ready to convert or call you or contact you directly then and there. They want to take their time. So by showing up at the top, you're capturing, and the pay per lead model, you're capturing those people who are ready to call you, contact you, phone call, message directly. They want to get someone on the phone. They need help. It's a matter of urgency. And so you're able to accomplish that via LSAs.
Absolutely.
So it's a great benefit.
So would you say that when it comes to pay-per-click advertising and LSAs, it's sort of like meeting people where they're at? So if they're ready to convert, that you've given them that message or call button. But if they need to do a little bit more research and read a landing page and educate themselves, then pay-per-click is there to capture their attention and then do more, give them more information before they convert.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair to say. I mean, and what we do, again, with CJ, when it comes to digital marketing, it really is best practice to have a holistic approach. And that, we talk about the prime real estate with the LSA. That's great, but I was just mentioning there's always different types of searchers, so you don't want to solely rely on LSAs. You may, but depending on the type of firm you are. But for more often than not, you want to have that holistic approach, and that have the LSAs at the top when you can, have the pay-per-click when you can, which is right below. There's Google Maps now. People are the different devices. Not everybody. Most search nowadays is done on cell phones. People are on the go. So to be able to show up on Google Maps is great. But yeah, you always want to give the option to encompass all of those different types of searchers. When just so that way, when they are ready to convert, you're there for them. I will say too, there's another feature with LSAs, just because it is the pay per lead model. So you are only charged when someone calls or messages you, but there is an option to include a website on the ad itself. So say, for example, someone's sort of on that fence, they're ready to call you or convert, but they still want to know a little bit more about your firm. You have your website in the ad itself. They click on the ad and they're taken to your website or any URL that you wish to provide in that ad. So in that regard, it's hugely important, vastly important, to where you can capture those types of searchers too that are willing or that are wanting to learn more about you as a firm. So you give them that option as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As many types of clients there are types of users on the internet searching for the information they need to take an action or make a decision. Let's talk about the firms who might participate in LSAs. So what types of law firms tend to see the best results, or what kind of aspects of law firm practice would deliver some of those best results?
So, anytime at CJ, when we have a new prospect or client that comes to us and they're interested in our services, at least on the paid side, meaning that, the paid digital advertising, we 99% of the time will recommend you begin with LSAs. For all the reasons we talked about, that you're already kind of skipping those people that are on the fence and they want to do research, but you're capturing those people that are ready to convert right then and there. So with that regard, every personal injury law firm in the country should be on LSAs, and more people are. Over the years, it's become a lot more competitive, to no surprise, because people have found out about this, and they understand the benefits. They understand the return on ad spend that is a result of it. So yeah, I mean, the short answer is that every firm should be on it. Now, that's not to say, in terms of the lifespan of the campaign for LSAs, that it will be worth it. So the way we operate now, LSAs or PPC, that's what we do for a living. We're the experts of understanding the data as it rolls in. We measure, we measure the data. We make our decisions based on that data. So if, for example, you come to us, we say you should be starting with LSAs, and for whatever reason you're losing money, then we pivot or we make changes to the account in LSAs to hopefully change that. But we're never one to continue to run for the sake of running. There's always the goal in mind. The main goal for us is that you make money, more money than you spend on advertising. So yeah, that would be that.
Yeah, I love that. I know from experience, kind of watching your team work, that, sometimes you guys will pull back on PPC and then forward on local services ads based on how things are spending. And, that really hands-on management allows those overall digital ad budget dollars to be used on kind of the channel that's performing best at the time. And so I love that you guys do that for our clients. I also love to hear that, that very clear statement. If you're a personal injury law firm, try out LSAs. Put yourself in there, and be part of that management and see if that ad channel works for you. I love it. So we want to talk about responsiveness, on the part of the firm. So Google emphasizes responsiveness for local services ads. What does this mean? What is responsiveness, and what does it mean for firms?
Sure. So yeah. So, um, going back to the last question, one point, Stephanie, that I wanted to make is that when I say every firm should be well, there's a nice segue into this, but when I say every firm should be running, they should. There's no guarantee that you're able to that you will be able to run. I mean, I mentioned how competitive this industry or how the space has gotten over the years. So just because you come to us and you say, oh, you should be starting or running LSAs, that's true, but there's no guarantee that you're going to see leads, at least not immediately. There's mechanisms in place that we can do to sort of help force the spend a little bit, not as much as there is on the PPC side of things. So when you talk about responsiveness, if and when you create an LSA account, say you're a new account, and Google does grant you those spots. Now, it's changed over the years. Right now, it's actually the top 2 spots. In fact, I have an example here, if you don't mind, just to kind of show you, just to give you an idea of what this looks like.
Oh, yeah.
Bear with me here. So if you can see on my screen here, I've got just a simple search of injury lawyer near me. So this would represent anybody who's looking for an injury lawyer. Now, these people here, you can see the top 2 results. It wasn't always like that. It used to be 3. Now they've shrunk it to 2. Now you do have the option with Google gives the searcher option to expand that and see more and more. So if you scroll down, I believe even more, you can go. There's around 20 or so. It used to be unlimited. Now it's about 20. These are all different LSA ads, different firms. There's about 20 or so that show. So if and when you're lucky enough to be shown here, stop sharing for a second. It's Google's rewarding you. You know, they say, okay, here's this service that we're offering you as an advertiser. But in terms of the responsiveness, now you want to deliver the best experience Google does for its users. So say, for example, Google does reward you. They show your ad, your LSA ad at the very top of Google. Somebody does a search, they see your ad, they call you, and you don't answer that phone. Google's going to see that, and they're going to penalize you. Not necessarily after just one missed call, but if this is a consistent thing where you do it, several times throughout the course of a week or over a month, Google sees that and they say, well, hey, wait a minute, we've rewarded you by showing your ad at the very top spot of Google. The person sees your ad, they click and call, but you're not going to answer. Well, that makes us look bad because here we are showing your ad to these different people. And they're like, well, wait a minute, why would I go to Google to search for that again? Because that person didn't even answer their call. So as a result, over time, if that is a continuous thing as you as a firm to not answer, not be responsive, Google does penalize you. And it can be very, very difficult to recover from that if you do start to see your ranking drop as a result of that responsiveness. So that for that reason alone, it's a huge, huge component when it comes to the ranking with LSAs.
Okay, so it's key that firms have something in place, whether it's a call service or other tools to answer those calls promptly on a consistent basis. So that's a good thing to keep in mind for firms who are getting started or are working with LSAs.
Absolutely, yeah, and we say, and if you don't have the intake service, that's okay. We have the option just like on pay-per-click, but we have the option to customize our ad schedule. So if you don't have an after-hours intake department, that's okay. We'll simply set your ad schedule to be during the business hours. Now, if possible, we do recommend either having members of your own team or a third-party intake team to be available 24/7 because we know that the 40-hour work week, there's a lot more hours in the week than that. And especially someone who's in dire need of a legal representation, they may not want to wait until 9 a.m. on a Monday to call you. So you want to have that in place. However, it's not required. The most important thing, though, is to have your ad hours set to a schedule to where you're very confident that your team will answer the phone and respond to the person on the other end.
That's a great point. That's great. And I'm glad it's flexible because I know there are firms of all sizes and all different resources. All right. So when we chatted before, we talked a little bit about the importance of reviews as related to local services ads. So let's dig into that. How can firms effectively manage their reviews, or can you tell us a little bit more how reviews and LSAs sort of work together
Sure. Yeah. And not just for LSA, I want to make sure I preface my answer with this is that's, it's a common best practice in all forms of digital marketing, especially on the SEO side. Google Business Profile, and it used to be called Google My Business. Google's constantly doing that, changing the names of their different products and features. Google Business Profile. Yeah, that's right. That's right. But just so people know, the Google Business Profile is everyone's familiar. It's not an ad, but it's you do a search on Google, that specific business that you're looking for shows up usually on the right side of your screen. On mobile, it's different, usually at the top. But what the Google Business Profile is, it's all information about your business. It's your website. You have options to provide a description about your business, your link to your website, your phone number, and the reviews. And so that's how people can, in all industries, if you have a Google Business Profile, Google gives that option to people to review your business. So what happens with local services ads and the specific account is that when we set them up, Google will actually take the corresponding Google Business Profile and link that up, sync it up with its local services ad. So those reviews that you have on Google Business Profile will carry over, right? It's the same reviews that will also appear on the local services ads. So, as someone who's searching, and they see your LSA ad, of course they're going to look at reviews. Who doesn't do that? Not just the number of reviews, but they will read the reviews themselves. So the more reviews, the better. The more consistent reviews, the better. But then one other component too, a lot of people don't realize is, and this ties into a little bit of the responsiveness factor, is you want to respond to reviews. Good or bad. You have a 1-star or a 5-star. It's always best practice to respond to all reviews as the business. And again, you're signaling to Google that you're active in here. You haven't just set this thing up years ago and let it sit. You're responsive. You care about your customers. You're grateful when they leave a good review. You're grateful when they leave not necessarily grateful, but you care about your business in the sense that if it's a negative review, but you want to alleviate that for that particular person as well as other future potential customers. So that all of that is all tied together with LSAs, and we talk about responsiveness, but it's also the reviews too. Just showing Google that you're active, you're prominent, and that you want to perform a good job for your customers, and Google will reward you.
Yeah, and it's great to hear. Reviews are such an important part of SEO as well for websites. And whether a firm is doing that on their own review management, or they're partnering with a third party, maybe even CJ for review management, that the sort of encouragement for reviews, and then responding and managing those Google reviews, that shows up in so many different places. So here at LSAs, but also on that Google, also part of that Google business profile, and then just generally everywhere. So it's so important for firms to invest in that review part. It's kind of neat. You wouldn't think like, oh, the Google business profile is also now going to be a part of this paid ad I'm working on. So this is a great insight to share with folks.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I will mention, I not to get too super technical on the LSA side of things. So you're right. And like I said, the reviews from the Google business profile will be tied to that particular, corresponding LSA account. There's an option. They actually call them Google verified reviews. That's what, the official Google term. And essentially what this is it's different than a normal review that someone would leave on your Google business profile. It's left after someone has contacted you via LSAs. Say as a law firm, you've signed them as a client. And then what they do is they actually go through, they leave the review, that particular review, through the LSA platform itself, not organically via a Google business profile. And what Google will do, because that lead/client was obtained through LSAs, that review is, like I said, it's called a verified review. And it actually, we've been told it's weighted more, meaning that it carries more weight when it comes to affecting your overall ranking. So again, not to get super technical, that's one of those many nuances within LSAs and how you manage, but just wanted to point that there is such a thing. And when we work with, our clients in particular, we can dive deeper into that with them.
Yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me that Google would reward users who used one product and funneled into another. That makes sense. But it also, that just having that green check mark, we know from kind of a UX perspective, it adds a little bit of authenticity and a little bit more veracity to that review. We know that that's a person who has actually used the service. So there's kind of a win-win there. Super cool.
I'm glad you brought that up too, Stephanie. One last point. You mentioned the green check mark. And so that's the Google screen, Google verified. Depending on the industry, I believe they actually label it differently. And so when you create an account for LSAs, it's now required, at least in the legal space, you have to have a minimum of 5 reviews. Okay. What this does, and when they initially launched LSAs years ago, it's essentially it's an insurance policy for the searcher, that you're the person that they see on the results, the person that they're contacting you across all industries, is who they are, who they say they are, obviously, but it's more of a credential factor, and it's more of an insurance thing. If if that person contacts you and they're dissatisfied or they're misled to some capacity, Google and I'd have to check because it's been years since they've really talked about this, but they actually will credit the person searching a dollar amount. I know that's changed over the years, but again, it's more of the it's signaling to the searcher with that green check mark that this firm is who they are, who they say they are, and you can trust us, so to speak. So it's that trust factor too.
Yeah, and those trust signals are so vital in the online landscape. It's not just what someone's searching for, but in their entire online experience. So anytime a firm can put authority and trustworthiness like front and center, it's a huge benefit to the firm. So we love seeing that.
Yeah,
All
no,
right.
that's exactly right.
Yeah, another. So, is there a new feature or trend coming up that our listeners need to hear about?
There is, yeah. So about a month now. So here we're at the middle of September, about August. Middle of August is when Google officially rolled this out to the different advertisers with LSAs. And what it is, it's called Rate This Lead, or it's a lead rating system. For years, up until this happened about a month ago, you were given the option as an advertiser or a firm to dispute leads, and what that meant was that if you receive a lead from somebody that it's a spam call, or somebody outside of your service targeted area, something that you didn't have set accordingly within your account. It's somebody just outside of the parameters of your settings, and Google will give you the option to dispute that lead. Google then reviews that particular lead, and they, if approved, they would credit you that dollar amount of what you were originally charged for that lead. That's changed now. Over the summer, Google they started to utilize their AI and identify these unwanted, unqualified leads on their own, and to this day that actually do that to where they're crediting you automatically. So all of that being said, they've done away now with the dispute factor. You're no longer to dispute leads as an advertiser. Instead, in place of that, though, it's this sort of feedback / like I said, lead rating system that they've implemented. And as the leads come in, you have the ability to click on that individual lead in LSAs, and that's it. There's a button you can click on to review the lead. It's a scale of 5. And so it's more of like, if you're very dissatisfied, dissatisfied, neutral, average, satisfied, and very satisfied. So you tell Google that, and then there's actually another question where you can specify the reason why you gave X rating. And so, for example, we have several clients like that. If through our reporting and we identify a lead through LSA that turned into a case, well, that's a perfect example. We go into that LSA, we find that specific lead, we then rate that, the 5, the very satisfied. The next page is what happened with this lead. We say, oh no, this turned into a case or client. What happens is, and this, I say what happens because it's still in its infancy. We're still collecting data as we implement this whole new system with our clients, is that Google over time will recognize these signals that you send to them. And again, using its AI, the idea being over time, over weeks, months, the more signals you send, the more they recognize that, the more they sort of weed out those spammy, unwanted leads, and the more they will go after those qualified leads. It's all done via AI. I can't explain it. Everybody knows Google knows more about us than any human being could ever know about other people. We were told years ago, I was told Google has 16,000, I believe, data points on each one of us. I think it's more than that now. I have to imagine it is. So all of those things combine, the idea being you send signals to Google. Google takes that. Thank you for that. And we'll do our best next time or over the next time span to get you those specific leads that you do want. So that's a big part of what we're working through now with this new feature, and we're excited about it.
Oh, that's exciting. I know that disputing leads was a big part of the LSA management for CJ for a long time. So it's interesting to hear that it's changed to this new system. I'm not surprised to hear that Google is using its users to train its AI, but hopefully that's to the end of getting higher quality leads for all of LSA's users, and particularly firms in the personal injury law space who are looking for those high quality leads. That's so cool. I'm so glad you shared that. I didn't know that.
More to come on all
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
we'll have to get back together and hear about this rate the lead and LSAs, in a few more months when you guys have more information. The product itself is developed, and I know that over time what's offered by Google will also change, and there'll be
Oh,
updates
yeah.
and tweaks from the service. So that's super cool. Thanks for giving our listeners a heads up.
Of course.
Our last question for our chat today. What's one key piece of advice for a law firm just starting out with local services ads?
So I say this, be patient. It's local services ads can be your best friend when your best friend is acting like a best friend. But in the real world, like a lot of best friends, uh, they can do things that don't necessarily make you want to be best friends with them. And what I mean by that is that when you run, whether it be a new account or an existing account, and we have our settings dialed in accordingly and we're humming, um, it can happen. It's very possible that we see this happen to where in a particular month, for no rhyme or reason, now it's part of our job to dig into those reasons and identify what potentially could have happened. But that lead volume can significantly drop out of the blue for no apparent reason. Google has said over the years, because of this, because it's just such a competitive space, all these law firms are recognizing how valuable it is. They want to create an equal playing field. Now that's their, terms, maybe not those exact words, but that's the idea. In that they rotate periodically who shows at the top and who doesn't. The lead quality is a whole nother thing that we've talked about. That can vary depending on the firm, depending on the time of the year. So be patient. And so, with our clients at CJ, we always, every week, we provide an update of the previous leads that have come via LSA. We check with our clients on those leads. And really, ultimately, we drill down to a cost per case. That's, sort of the holy grail in terms of digital marketing, LSAs, everything. We want to make sure we're getting you signed cases at the most efficient cost possible. So if there's some months that your lead volume itself is down or your cost per case has risen substantially, I would say be patient, be consistent, trust the process, trust the product. Google knows what they're doing. I mean, I know someone would argue that, and myself would argue that, depending on the search or the intent of the user. But over time, Google is Google for a reason. They're the reason they're king when it comes to search engines. So they've been doing this a lot longer. They have all of the data on all of us, as I mentioned earlier, and just trust the process. There's a reason they've chosen to show LSAs at the very top of Google, and that's for good reason. So if you have bad months, if you're not running right now, that more than likely will change. And over time, we tell clients that after a monthly call, oh, we were down this month, what happened? Well, we'll look into that, but it's important to look at the bigger picture. Look at the last year. Look at the last 6 months. And more often than not, those numbers over the last 6 months or year are much better than that, particular previous month or so. So just trust it. It will work, but you have to be patient.
Yeah, I would say, and while you're being patient, take a look at those factors that affect Google. So review responsiveness, responsiveness on call times. Those are some things that you can work on while the algorithm does its thing, and like your LSAs are competing in the marketplace.
Absolutely. Yep. That's right.
All right. Any last thoughts to share with us, with our audience?
No, I just wanted to thank you, Stephanie, for having me. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into all of this stuff. I try my best to keep it sort of high level. You mentioned too, Google's constantly changing things. We mentioned the lead rating feature. Who knows what they'll come out with next? But yeah, that's our job, is to stay on top of all of that, is to manage each of our accounts that we do, and make our adjustments based off the data that we see. So yeah, but that'd be about it.
Yeah, I am so glad that you are head of LSAs and other digital ads. I know you love to get into some of the technical stuff. I've heard you talk about it, and I'm so glad you're doing it.
Oh, yeah. I enjoy it. I enjoy it. No, you get to use both sides of your brain, really. I mean, it's the number crunching, but it's also, the other side, to where you get to add copy, and you're sort of observing human behavior on top of that. So you're using all of your brain, or at least I like to think so.
Absolutely. Cheers to all of the brain. Thank you so much for your time today and sharing your expertise, Jamie. We're going to kick it off for our listeners. Thanks, everyone, for checking out the PI Playbook podcast. We'll see you again another time.
Thank you, Stephanie.
That's all for today's episode of Grow Fast, Grow Smart, the PI Playbook by Accelerator. Be sure to subscribe for more tips and tricks on growing your law firm the smart way.